and welcome to another episode of Worlds Collide. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Mitch.
And today we are bringing you The Watchmen.
Who watches The Watchmen?
Who watches The Watchmen? I watched The Watchmen.
I watched The Watchmen. I binged it this week.
Oh, and you thoughts?
I loved it. I loved it. So anybody who hasn't watched the series, check it out. It's one of the more intelligently written shows I've watched.
Yeah, and that's one of the HBO series specials. Came out about 6 months to a year ago?
Yeah, not less than a year ago.
Yeah, okay. And it is basically the TV series version of the movie, somewhat.
No, I wouldn't call
somewhat.
it that.
It follows the same storyline?
It follows the same storyline.
Okay.
Not the movie, though. It ignores the movie completely.
Right. It's almost like this never happened.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have different characters. It's almost like it
Well,
spans a different segment of time.
It's not even that. So today's episode, we're gonna talk about the original comic. We're gonna talk about the movie. We're gonna talk about the TV series, and we're also gonna talk about a little bit about Doomsday Clock.
Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So right off the hop, the movie really good. It's very faithful to the comic, except for a few changes. The biggest change is the ending.
What changed?
So in the movie, spoilers, by the way.
Why don't we go through the series of events? That way we can talk about the changes.
Okay. So, Watchmen, once again, spoilers if you haven't read the comic, if you haven't watched the movie, if you haven't watched the series yet, and if you are trying to get caught up on the comics. Spoilers.
Yes.
So, ultimately, Watchmen, the comic and the movie, it's a whodunit. It's a mystery. Right at the beginning of the story, you see this character who's known as the comedian get knocked out the window to his death, plummets to his death. And then the entire story is catapulted based off of that. Everything's about who killed the comedian, why they killed the comedian, what is actually going on.
Right. It's a big cover-up.
That's right. Well, more than interesting. No, kind of. Yeah, it is a cover-up.
It's a big cover-up, and they're trying to figure out what's even happening.
Yeah.
What's being covered up.
Yeah. I just said it's what's being covered up, because the murder of the comedian is not what.
That's not the important.
No.
Thing. It's just what let everyone basically shine a light down this path that said, "Oh, wait a minute, what's actually going over here? We've been ignorant to all this whole time."
Yeah.
It's the tipping point. It's kind of like, oh shit, I left a clue.
Yeah. And so just to set the stage for everybody watching, anybody who hasn't read the comic, who hasn't seen the movies, and don't care about spoilers, so you're sticking around and watch, setting the stage, Watchmen takes place in an alternate reality, an alternate history where heroes existed in our real world. So there's no Superman, there's no Spider-Man, there's no Batman. This is like as if real life, not comics, real life actually had people dressed up in costume and going to fight crime. But there was one exception. One guy named Dr. Manhattan, he's the only one who actually has powers. And his existence changes the course of history. Because Dr. Manhattan, we'll go over what he can do and whatnot, but just suffice to say, Dr. Manhattan was responsible for winning the Vietnam War. The war that the United States ended up losing in reality, because Dr. Manhattan existed, the U.S., we actually won the Vietnam War.
He was the turning point. He was the bomb.
Yeah.
He was the nuke. They sent him in to basically say, all right, clean it up.
Yeah. And then Vietnam ended up becoming the 50... how many states is there in the United States? 53rd state?
Yeah, it became the next state.
Yeah.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought Adrian von Ziegler had some powers.
Adrian Veidt?
Yeah.
Not really. He does, but not really.
Okay.
So Adrian Veidt, also known as Ozymandias, also known as one of my favorite written characters. I'm a huge fan of Ozymandias. He is a perfect human being. He's the smartest man. He is regarded as the smartest man on Earth. Whether or not he is or not, that's the press that was given to him, and he buys into that press very much. So he is supremely arrogant, but rightfully so. He's one of the most intelligent beings on Earth. He believes he is the most intelligent person on Earth. He's also a perfect human being physically. So he's like, at the age of 40 years old, he's doing gymnastics as fundraisers.
Yeah. Like he's basically Batman level skills.
Yes. He's super strong. Not saying super strong as in like superhumanly strong, but peak physical ability strong.
Yeah.
And his reflexes are honed so fast that it's almost superhuman. So the two things that are almost superhuman about him is his fighting capabilities are almost superhuman. It's almost like he can see what's coming before it happens. And also he seems to have the ability to catch bullets. Although that last part, even he surprises himself that he can do that.
What?
Yeah. So he always perfects that he's fast enough to stop a bullet, but the one time where he gets shot and he actually manages to catch the bullet, he was actually surprised that he actually did it.
And he had gloves on, his metal glove of some sort at the time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was just shot right to his hand. Yeah. Right?
But he does that in the series too.
Yes, where he catches the bullet.
Yeah. So twice now he actually manages the catch the bullet trick.
It's a pretty good trick.
Yeah. But other than that, there's no superpowers.
Now, so this all takes place in DC comic, but alternate reality, essentially.
Alternate reality, yeah. As a matter of fact, so Watchmen was written by Alan Moore. Alan Moore is the same guy who wrote V for Vendetta, The Killing Joke. He's the one who wrote League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's DC?
Yep.
What?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily DC, but it is a comic book.
It was independently separately published, and then in the conglomerations, DC technically owns it now.
Now, I wonder how accurate it is to the Sean Connery movie, because that's my only interaction with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's my only interaction to it as well. So V for Vendetta I read, but and The Killing Joke I read. Alan Moore also wrote for Swamp Thing. I never read any of his Swamp Thing work.
I didn't get very far into the TV series, maybe 3 or 4 episodes. When I heard they were canceling it, I kind of
dropped off.
Yeah, I'll finish it, but I knew ahead of time that if they're not continuing season 1, it's going to end the season with a lot of questions and a lot of unanswered shit that I'll just be annoyed with.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, obviously season 1 intended more.
Yeah.
So it lost its spark for me.
Yeah, I get that. So I've never read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I've never read From Hell, and I never even finished watching From Hell. To be honest,
what's From Hell?
That's the movie about Jack the Ripper. It's with Johnny Depp.
No.
Well, anyways, that's another Alan Moore comic as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's a whole litany of other ones, but those are the notable ones that I recognized.
Okay. Now, with this, basically, after the comedian's killed, what happens in the series of events? Because then we have to differentiate between movie, comic, show.
Well, okay, so the movie and the comic, if you watch the movie, the comic, it follows the comic very faithfully. So it's Rorschach investigating the murder of this guy who turns out to be the comedian. And then it goes down the rabbit hole of finding out about the Minutemen, which was a group of superheroes, or no, a group of heroes. I can't call them superheroes, they're not really super, but a group of costumed vigilantes from the 1940s. And so he's investigating that. You find out more about the Minutemen, you find out more about the Watchmen. Who were actually called the Watchmen. They were called something else.
Yeah, they weren't actually.
It was the Minutemen was the 1940s, and in the 1970s it was.
I can't remember what they were called.
Actually, I've got a comic right here. Let me find out for you guys right now.
Now, Rorschach. Rorschach is the character who basically has the shifting mask. If you ever go to your psychiatrist or something and they're holding up the flashcards, and what do you see? What do you see? That's essentially his mask. The ever-changing.
Yeah, it's
pixelation.
a ever-shifting ink block test.
Yeah.
And the entire comic is narrated by Rorschach. As you're reading the comic, you're actually reading through Rorschach's journal entries.
Right. Now that's the post I actually put up today on our Instagram. Front cover is Rorschach tucking his journal away.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the comic, the journal gets uncovered by some comic book nerds. And newspaper. Actually, no, I think they were news reporters.
Oh, and then boom, they leaked it, and that's how the whole story got out as like a testimony by him.
That's right.
Interesting. Yeah, I like how they don't have any of the powers. Like the comedian's just a dude with a shotgun and a bunch of hockey pads and like padded armor.
Yeah.
And who do we got? The owl guy.
So yeah, let me go through the characters.
Yeah.
And give you a little bit of publication history to the creation, the inception of Watchmen.
Right.
So Watchmen was a story that Alan Moore had an idea of, but his original idea was to use characters from the Charlton comics. So Charlton Comics was a older publication comics that DC ended up purchasing.
Oh.
And Charlton Comics was the home of a few heroes that we know of. So one of those is Captain Atom. He was a Charlton Comics character.
All right.
The Question was a Charlton Comics character.
Okay.
So let me go through these characters. So first, let's start off with the comedian. The comedian, his real name is Edward Blake.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, he's portrayed by...
Negan. I forget his name.
Winchester.
Yeah, Sam and Dean's dad.
Yeah. John Winchester.
John.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan? Jeffrey something Morgan?
Kenny's getting it.
Yeah. I always want to call him Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but I don't think it's actually
he's such
Dean.
a great actor.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, I've loved him ever since Supernatural.
Yeah.
You know, you see him coming in, was it like season 1?
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan,
yeah.
Great actor.
As a matter of fact, a little tangent here. In Batman v Superman, Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays Thomas Wayne.
He does.
Now, if they ever do a Flashpoint, in Flashpoint, Thomas Wayne... So in Flashpoint, when Flash goes back in time and rewrites reality, instead of Bruce Wayne dying... Instead of Bruce Wayne's parents getting shot by...
Bruce gets shot.
Bruce gets shot. And Bruce's dad becomes Batman.
Bruce's mom
becomes the Joker. So, but that means that if we ever did a Flashpoint, that means we would have Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Thomas Wayne Batman, and I want to see this movie.
That's a gritty Batman.
Yeah.
He's going to be carrying around a bat.
Yeah. So, but the comedian was actually based off a character from Charlton Comics called Peacemaker. Actually, he's a combination of Peacemaker and Nick Fury from Marvel. So when he was conceptualized, it was kind of a combination of Nick Fury and Peacemaker. Peacemaker is a character from Charlton Comics where essentially is the comedian. So it's just this guy who works for the military, and he's a peacekeeper. He's a pacifist peacekeeper, but to enforce this peacekeeping, he uses violent means. So I don't know how being a pacifist works in there. He uses a bunch of non-lethal weapons, but eventually he becomes disassociated with everything, disillusioned by everything, and starts using more lethal means, and ends up going a little bit insane. And so the comedian.
Yeah.
So that's the comedian.
He's a good character.
Yeah. Night Owl is one of the main characters of Watchmen. If you're watching the Watchmen as a traditional superhero movie,
he's your Batman.
He's your Batman. He's your main protagonist.
Yeah. He's got the gadgets. He's got the flying owl ship.
Yeah.
He's got the suit with the night vision and it looks like Batman's helmet.
Yeah.
But it's an owl.
Yeah. And he's actually based off of off of Ted Kord Blue Beetle.
Really?
Because Blue Beetle is from Charlton Comics as well.
Oh.
And just like Blue Beetle, Ted Kord wasn't the original Blue Beetle. He had a predecessor Blue Beetle. So same with Night Owl. Night Owl had a predecessor Night Owl. He's actually the second Night Owl.
Yeah.
So the first Night Owl, his real name is Hollis Mason. Hollis Mason in the comic, by the time when you're reading the comics, Hollis wrote a autobiography called Under the Hood, talking about his days with the Minutemen. And talking like behind the scenes stuff. He doesn't reveal anybody's secret identities, that their secret identities aren't already known, but he does give a sneak peek into behind the scenes of the days of Minutemen. He talks about how the comedian raped Silk Spectre and whatnot. And as you're reading this comic, in between each chapter, there's an excerpt from Under the Hood. So you can actually read Under the Hood as you're reading Watchmen. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So
you're keeping up on the tabloid story,
yeah,
as the real stories unfold.
That's right. As a matter of fact, there's another story unfolding when you're reading this comic as well. So you have the main story. Then in between issues, you have the excerpts from Under the Hood,
right.
And also every once in a while you get thrown in bits and pieces of this story from about a pirate from like the 1940s. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, well, because there's a lot of points in the comic where it's kind of like a picture. The best way for me to explain this would be kind of like a centralized bus station. Every once in a while, you always come back to the centralized bus station. Every once in a while, in this comic, you come back to this newsstand. And at this newsstand they sell this comic, and in this comic is this story about the pirate. And this like buried treasure. I forgot what it's called exactly, but so every once in a while you get little panels going over this comic, this pirate comic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just random. It's just for fun.
Yeah. Well, they kind of do tie in a little bit together.
Oh.
Like there is symmetry between what's going on and in this pirate story. But what's up?
So this is Kenny talking from behind the camera. I have done some study classes in like English and stuff, and one of the things we covered was Watchmen, and we actually talked about the comics. So part of Watchmen, the actual comic book, is a critique about the world as if superheroes were real. And one of the main issues a lot of people bring up with the movie is that it's more of a glorification of superheroes,
yes,
versus the critique in the book. And with the pirate story, there's actually a quote, "I had become horror, amongst horror I must dwell." So that means, because of like the dystopian world from the superheroes and the critique, if you live in this world, you become a horror. So it does mirror and parallel.
Yeah. See, that's cool. They can't even brought his study notes.
He was ready for this one.
Yeah. It's definitely this is definitely a worthwhile piece to study. This and V for Vendetta. Alan Moore is legendary because of these two stories, because of Watchmen and V for Vendetta. Really.
They're very
political,
and they're very like,
in your face.
Yes.
He doesn't pull any punches.
It's kind of like South Park in the fact that they're talking about what's going on in the world today, and they're not hiding it. They're not.
Yeah.
Like, he throws it right down the throat.
Yeah. So Hollis Mason was the original owl, Night Owl, and Dan Drayberg is the second Night Owl.
Yeah.
And in the comics, Drayberg is portrayed as... It's funny. So even though he's based off of the Blue Beetle, there's a lot of aspects to him that is very much based on... very reminiscent to Batman. He's even got like a beetle... or an owl cave. And he's got his... owl jet. I forgot what the owl jet was called, but it's got an actual name
or something.
Yeah, I don't think so, but something like that. But anyways, they have this jet. The jet actually has a big role in the series as well, and you see it a lot in the movie as well. But anyways, so he's got his own cave. He's got his own flying vehicle. He's got a bunch of different tools, non-lethal tools. He doesn't use guns. He's just a man in a suit with who's a gifted engineer and a good fighter, but take off the costume, and when the Watchmen series takes place, it's most of these characters are retired. So Drayberg is a retired Night Owl. He's like in his late 30s. He's got a beer gut, but he's still very tall and muscular. So he actually kind of looks like a middle-aged retired Clark Kent, is what he looks like.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weathered.
Yeah. but very tall and still muscular and whatnot. So
still did the job.
Yeah.
At one point, he shoots back up. He still fit the costume. He's like, I've gained some weight.
Yeah.
You know?
He's also impotent. That also plays a little bit into his character and his personality as well, his own insecurities and doubts and whatnot.
And he has the love interest with
Silk Spectre.
Yeah,
so that's
Silk
the next one
Spectre.
I'll go over. So Silk Spectre.
Now there's two of them.
Yes.
So the comedian raped the first one, the mother.
Yes. So originally Silk Spectre was going to be based off of another Charlton character called Nightshade, but more kind of felt this character. He was kind of bored of that idea. He wasn't really a fan of Nightshade. So when he was told to not use actual DC characters to create his own characters, he decided to just scrap that idea and just base this character off of Black Canary. And so just like Black Canary has, her mother was the Black Canary, and then she becomes a Black Canary afterwards. The same with the Silk Spectre.
Right.
Her mother was the original Silk Spectre, and then the main story followed the daughter as the second Silk Spectre. So the mother, her name was Sally Jupiter, and the daughter is Lori Jupiter, but you find out that Jupiter is actually shortened. Her actual name is just Pestchik, and it's to hide the fact that they were Polish. They're Polish immigrants.
Nice.
So that's another thing about the story that we need to address is because I think it's because they won the Vietnam War, the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia never ended. It's still going on. Like in 1980, so this story takes place in 1985. In 1995, the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia, the USSR, is still going on. So that's why, and they were going to invade Poland, and the U.S. is trying to prevent the USSR from invading Poland. So that's probably why they had to hide that they were from Poland. They were
There's
Polish.
illegal immigrants.
Yeah, exactly. There's that.
What are the characters we got? I'm trying to think. We've
So,
talked a little bit about Vike.
Yeah. So okay, well let's go Rorschach. Rorschach, his real name is Walter Novak. His reveal of his character is brilliant. So just like in the movie, in the comic, you're constantly seeing this guy with a sign, this homeless man with a sign that says the end is nigh. You see him, you don't really think anything of it when you see him in the movies. You don't really think anything of it when you're reading a comic. But when you finally find out who Rorschach is, it is this homeless guy with the end is nigh sign that's been portrayed throughout the comic and in the movie.
Oh, I didn't even clue into that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the homeless guy with the sign.
I'll have to rewatch the movie.
Yeah, when you rewatch the movie, you'll see the guy the red head with the end is nigh, and that's Rorschach. Yeah, and he's based off of another Charleston character called The Question.
Right.
The Question, he was featured quite a bit in Justice League Unlimited. He's actually a pretty cool character. He's kind of like Batman, but more paranoid and very much all about the conspiracy theories. He's a nut job, really, and so is Rorschach. He's a nut job. He's a conspiracy theorist.
He thinks everything is out to get him. Everyone's against him. Everyone knows. They're all in on it.
Well, the comedian dies. So this guy who is the comedian, who turned out to be the comedian, dies, and because of that, Rorschach automatically jumps to the conclusion somebody's out to kill all costumed heroes.
Right.
One does not make a pattern. But turns out he wasn't completely wrong, though, because as things progress, so the comedian dies, and then the original Night Owl gets killed. Dr. Manhattan ends up leaving Earth. We'll go over Dr. Manhattan in a second. Dr. Manhattan ends up leaving Earth, abandoning humanity and all its troubles.
Coerced into it, somewhat guilted, I'd say.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
All orchestrated, though.
By the main villain.
Right.
And it's, once again, the comic is very intelligently written, and the series that they made last year is also very intelligently written.
Yeah, it followed a different track.
The
TV series, completely different setup to the same story.
Yeah. Now here's a interesting aspect that I read that I didn't know, and a lot of people who are watching probably don't know this. No, still no case. one thing that I didn't know while I was doing my research is when Alan Moore was reading these, by the fourth issue, by the fourth chapter, it was when Alan Moore realized that at the end of his story, Rorschach is going to die. He's going to have to die. Because the way he wrote Rorschach is uncompromising. He doesn't take... He has his moral... Like, it's funny. You would think, if you translated him into a D&D character, you would think that he would be a chaotic alignment. No, he is lawful. Lawful. There is no bending in his morals. There is no bending in his ideology. There is no compromise. That's right.
It's his law.
That's right. So a lot of people would think the guy is insane and chaos incarnate, but he's not. He really not. He is. He is one of the most predictable people. As long as you understand who Rorschach is, he is predictable.
And Vike knew that.
Yes. Yes.
Vike knew that.
So
I think the only one we have left to talk about then is Manhattan.
Yes. So actually, no, we haven't really talked about Ozymandias. So Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt, his drawing was based off of Alexander the Great. So throughout the comic and the movie and in the series, he keeps a picture of Alexander the Great. Well, he was modeled after Alexander the Great. And he is based off of another Charlton character called Peter Cannon, the Thunderbolt. And essentially he's the same thing. He's just a perfect man who decides to start fighting crime. But he's kind of like Doctor Strange a little bit, this Thunderbolt. So he was born of a privileged family. He was given all the education in the world. But then when he was sent to some Tibetan monastery to learn off of these Tibetan monks, he had to prove himself. And when he proved himself worthy, he was given these ancient scrolls that allowed him to unlock untapped potentials of his brain. So the whole entire idea of the human brain isn't used at its full potential, and to unlock those untapped potential of the brain will unlock superpowers. I think that all comes from this character, because this is like it's 1940 character,
right?
And that's his idea. It's that
unlock more areas of the brain. Yeah. Superpowers are hidden there.
That's right. So he had it's mind over matter, and his powers are mind over matter and whatnot. So it's not like he could warp reality, or it's not like he has flight or anything like that, but I'm sure he could levitate and like different minor tricks that you could explain with mind over matter kind of thing.
Right.
And that was Thunderbolt. And Adrian Veidt, also known as Ozymandias, is based off of that character. And Ozymandias, the name itself, is a fictional character from like ancient Egypt, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or ancient Greek. There's a historical significance to the name Ozymandias.
That's the short form of it. Can't even look it up.
Yeah, I can't even look it up, but I know that Adrian Veidt got the name Ozymandias from actual history.
So which is his moniker?
What do you mean?
Which one would he go by as his crime fighting name?
Ozymandias.
Okay.
Ozymandias is his crime fighting name.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's Ozymandias, and now Dr. Manhattan. So Dr. Manhattan, his comparison is a little bit more obvious. He's based off of another Charlton character, Captain Atom.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So Captain Atom in DC Comics is one of the more popular, probably next to, tied with Blue Beetle being the most popular character from Charlton Comics that got integrated into DC. Captain Atom is kind of like Superman. He's gone toe-to-toe with Superman. He's as strong as Superman, as durable as Superman, and as fast as Superman. And
just charged differently.
Yeah, and his powers are he could manipulate all different aspects of radiation. Any type of radiation he could emit and control.
That's strong.
Yeah.
Radiation will level most people.
Yeah, and that's why he could go up against Superman, because he could create red sun radiation. Yeah.
To depower him.
Yeah. So and Dr. Manhattan is based off of Captain Atom. Now, Dr. Manhattan is way more powerful than Captain Atom. So
yeah, like reality bending, whatever your mind can imagine, and then some.
Pretty much, although not as omnipotent as I thought he was. So what you find out about Ozymandias?
So it's a reference to Ramses II, and It's also in 2 poems where they both basically say, "Kings of kings am I, Ozymandias. If anyone would know how great I am and where I lie, let him surpass one of my works." Basically, him like boasting about how great he is, but also the 2 poems that reference talk about the inevitable decline of rulers with their pretentious right to rule.
That makes sense. That kind of fits.
King of Kings.
Yeah.
That's what he thought of himself.
And his hubris, that makes sense because that's the thing. Like you could actually do a side-by-side comparison between Ozymandias and Lex Luthor because they are the most intelligent people on Earth. They are also the most
important
in their own minds. Yes, they're infallible in their own minds.
Yeah.
Their hubris is cranked to 11.
Well, that's why that's their weakness usually.
Yes,
right. Getting them.
They can't see their own flaws.
Yeah, they can't see their own flaws.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so perfect in their mind they can't see their faults.
Mistake.
No, it's impossible.
Can't.
No. So his real name was John Osterman. He was born off of German parents. His father was a watchmaker, a watchmaker. But then when the first nuclear bomb went off, before the nuclear bomb actually, this watchmaker wanted John, his son, to be a watchmaker and follow his steps and be a watchmaker. But when Hiroshima happened, when the first nuclear bomb hit, it taught him that watchmaking is an obsolete art, and you should be focusing on nuclear science more than anything else.
So his dad pushed him down that road.
That's right. So he became a nuclear physicist. And one thing led to another. Because of comics, he developed some kind of machine. And he goes into this machine to go get his wife's watch, I think it was.
Yeah. It was like, there's about to test some nuclear reactor of some sort.
Yeah.
And he was just in the machine, had left his pocket watch in there and had to go back in to get it. When he got it, the door shut and locked him in.
Yeah.
And boom, the reactor started. They did their test and...
Yeah, split him. He got disintegrated.
Atoms. Yeah.
He got atomized. And then something weird happened. His consciousness remained and he ended up putting himself back together again. But when he did, he didn't quite put himself back together again the way he used to be. So, effectively, when he put himself back together again, he became blue. He became permanently irradiated. Nice.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for the hard work.
Yeah, way to get that cardio.
Dr. Manhattan. So, when he put himself back together again, he became out all blue. And it's actually because science actually covered on why he's all blue and everything, it actually makes sense.
Okay, why?
Scientifically, I don't really remember. I have to rewatch the episode. But he actually did an episode on why it makes sense that his skin is all blue. It has something to do with the radiation that he emits and whatnot, which also ties into what Ozymandias does in the story. So the big villain in this is Ozymandias, and he ends up making it seem like, and it actually is, Dr. Manhattan is irradiating people that are around him.
So he does it to his wife.
Yeah.
And blames his wife. Well, blames Dr. Manhattan for being the cause of his wife's death.
Yeah.
Her getting cancer, her succumbing to the illness. But really, he had been pumping the radiation into the building.
Yes, exactly. So Dr. Manhattan, powers and abilities. Okay, you ready for this?
Unfathomable.
Okay, so Dr. Manhattan has size manipulation, so he can make himself as small or as big as he wants. Flight, although he doesn't use flight that much, more levitation, but he can do true flight as well.
Wow.
Invulnerability, immortality. So here's the tricky one. He perceives all times at the same time. So
past, present, future, they're all happening at once.
That's right, but it's his past, present, and future. So when I first read this, my first assumptions of Dr. Manhattan is that he could time travel. And that's the one thing he can't do. He can't time travel. What he does is not time traveling. It's his perception of time is different than everybody else. We see time linear. We only see the time that we are in right now. I'm in this moment.
His is a loop more so.
Sort of, yeah.
So he can go back to different points on the loop.
Yeah. Well, sort of, yeah. So, it's a loop. Even a loop is not accurate. It's more like a dot. And all times are on this dot. He experiences all times at the same time. Like, for him,
true,
possibly his life lasts 1 second. Because he's experiencing the past, present, and future all at the same time. Well, that means that to his perspective, his life lasted a millisecond.
That's wild.
Yeah. So it's really difficult to explain, very difficult to portray. And so in the movie, they tried to portray this idea, and I felt like they didn't do that very well. They were unsuccessful in portraying.
In the show, they did a much better job.
They did a much better job in the show in portraying his existence at all times. But even then, like, the comic nails it really well. But the comic has the advantage of using panels. Because the use of panels can be done very creatively to show that I'm in 1956, and then the next panel I'm in 1963. Next panel I'm in 1985. Next panel I'm in 1950, whatever. So a good example is in the show when he meets Officer Knight.
Oh, and they're at the restaurant. They're at the bar, and they're sitting there at the table, and he's trying to convince her to have a date. Yeah, and he tells her that he already knows that this date already happened.
What's that? Yeah.
He goes over and says, "I want to take you on a date," and she's like, "Oh, I don't know this and that," and he's like, "Well, we already did it. It went great." Like,
yeah. Well, he doesn't tell her it went great because he doesn't tell her anything that she doesn't already know, but he does do things like. How he already he talks about he knows about how her parents died, and she's like, "How did you know about how my parents died?" Well, you're going to tell me in 20 minutes from now. And then 20 minutes later into the episode, she tells him about her parents. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know that," because that was her. So that was her first time telling him. That's his first time finding out about it, but he knew about it before she ever told him. That's the fucked up thing about Dr. Manhattan. Another thing is like he falls in love with her. So, he's in love with her throughout the entire relationship. But the moment he falls in love with her is near the end of the relationship. That's fucked up, right? The only other thing that I've ever seen that's as fucked up was in Doctor Who, where with River was her name, where the Doctor and River, every time they met with each other, his first time meeting her is her last time meeting him. And as they progress through the series, their relationship blossoms. You get attached to this relationship. Like, I love River. She's such a great character. And then the last episode, his last time seeing her is her first time meeting him. And you can see the sadness, the profound sadness in the Doctor because he knows that. So, like, when she doesn't know who he is, he knows this is the first time she meets him. That means this is the last time he's ever going to see her. So it's so well written, and so it's kind of like that with Dr. Manhattan and Officer Knight in the series.
Yes,
kind of. Just the time is all fucked up.
Because it's like she tries to sacrifice herself for him, I believe, in the end, and that's the moment where he says, "Oh, you went and did this for me. I can't let you."
Yeah.
And then he sacrificed himself for her, but that was the moment he fell in love with her.
Yeah. Even though he loved her, he loved her throughout the entire relationship.
Because of that moment, and because he sees that moment from the start.
That's right. I don't envy anybody writing for Dr. Manhattan.
It's a mind fuck and a half.
It'd be so difficult to write for that character. It's difficult to write for a character. You need to be able to empathize with that character. You need to put yourself in that character's shoes. And Dr. Manhattan's abilities are so beyond human comprehension, it'd be so difficult to write for a character like that.
It's just vast. So vast. The unlimited potential, the unlimited aspects, possibilities, because he could change and implement things. He could dictate outcomes.
Yeah. So beyond that, He doesn't need food, sleep, or to breathe.
No, he just exists.
He has unlimited perfect teleportation. So when I say unlimited, I mean he can teleport to anywhere, exactly where he intends to teleport, and with no limit to the range.
Anywhere. Another planet.
Yeah. Intangibility. He could make himself face through objects, or objects face through him.
He can split himself.
Yep. Yeah. He can create multiple copies of himself. He has complete awareness and control over atomic and subatomic particles. So that allows him to reshape reality as he sees fit.
Take people apart.
Yep. He also has, disintegration. He can disintegrate people out of existence. He's omnikinetic, which means that he's telekinetic and pyrokinetic and hydrokinetic. He can control whatever he wants with his mind.
And he knows what you're thinking.
Yep. I don't know if he knows what you're thinking. Now, I've never read anything about him showing telepathy.
Oh, no telepathy?
I don't think so.
Right, he knows actions, but
Yes.
he doesn't know what people are thinking, because I remember in the show and in the movie, more so in the movie, he's asking, because he's also with the Silk Spectre, isn't he?
Yes.
So it's him and Owlman, both with the same girl.
Yes.
And he's trying to tell her, what are you thinking? He's asking her, what are you thinking? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking right now.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing in existence he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Because he knows everything.
Yeah. He also has, he can create matter out of nothing, which portrays when he goes to Mars and creates a castle.
Yeah, he just materializes out of the ground, out of the minerals and elements, and just...
Yeah. He can reverse entropy, which is crazy, because remember I had to research on what entropy really was. Entropy, by definition, is irreversible damage. He can reverse entropy.
Wow.
Yeah. So age is entropy, because as we get older, our bodies change, our skin wrinkles.
Death?
Death is entropy, because you start decaying and whatnot. So decay is entropy. Justin's dog is snoring. But yeah, so Dr. Manhattan could reverse entropy.
That's wild.
Yeah. He can create life, create force fields.
Create life?
Yes. Yes, which
Like-
is portrayed in
baby.
the series. Yeah. Well, then, yeah, because in the series he
Makes
creates.
the egg.
Well, he makes Adam and Eve.
I
So,
forgot about that.
so we're going to talk about the series in a second.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but that's Dr. Manhattan, big blue naked body. That's the other thing. So
They try and hide his wiener in scenes, but
yeah,
in the comics they don't.
no. So Dr. Manhattan, because of his weird way to perceive time, he has no attachment to humanity. He's lost touch with humanity. He doesn't feel for humanity as he should, and he doesn't feel the need for clothes, because what's the point of modesty? It really doesn't make any. It doesn't
He
matter.
just doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's insignificant.
There's a scene in the comics, they actually portrayed it in the movie as well, where they're in Vietnam, and the comedian and Dr. Manhattan, and this Vietnamese girl comes into a bar, and she's pregnant, and asking the comedian to come back with her, to stay in Vietnam and be with her, and he tells her to fuck off. He's going back to the United States, and he doesn't give a shit about her. Obviously, he's the one who knocked her up, and as she gets angry, she takes a bottle, breaks it open, and slashes the comedian across the face. So later on, he has a scar across the face. It's from this smashed bottle. And the comedian turns around and kills this woman, this pregnant woman, this woman that's pregnant with his child, just kills her. And Dr. Manhattan is standing right beside her, and he said, "You shouldn't have done that." And the comedian's like, "What do you care? You were standing right there. You could have easily turned her gun into dust, or the bullet into bubbles, or the broken bottle into a pillow, and you didn't do anything. You just sat there and let it happen." It's because Dr. Manhattan just doesn't care.
Yeah, it's insignificant. This will play out, and it'll play out.
And when he reprimands the comedian for killing this woman, it's more of like a knee-jerk reaction more than an actual moral dilemma.
Yeah, it's like, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You didn't. You don't really care.
No.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I agree.
Yeah. So the big difference between the movie and the comics. So we'll wrap this up a little bit. So at the end of the big reveal was that at the end, Adrian Veidt, also known as Ozymandias, his big plan was. You know how I said that the Cold
War is still in act.
That's right. So there is still a threat of nuclear strike between USSR
world
and
domination, world destruction.
Yes. So Ozymandias wanted to unite the world.
No more fighting, no more wars, just stop.
That's right. And how to do that is to give them a common threat.
So how did he plan to do? He engineered an alien.
Well, in the comics, it was an alien. In the movie, it was just nuclear bombs. So there was no alien in the movie.
Right.
So that's the big change they did in the movie versus the comics.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't like that change. I think it kind of made sense because it's a 2-hour movie to be able to explain about the...
where'd these aliens come from at the end of the movie?
Exactly. It would have been too much to explain. But in the comic, that's what happened. Is he created a teleportation device that teleported in this squid from another dimension that uses a psychic blast, killing millions of people in New York.
Oh, like 3 million. Like 3 million people died.
Yeah.
And what did that do? It united the rest of the world against it.
Sort of. So that's where the comic ended, and that's where the movie ended. So now let's talk about the 2 different aftermaths. There are 2 different aftermaths. Let's talk about the series first.
Where are the aftermaths? Are they written in like a different series or a comic?
No, sort of. So we'll talk about the series first. So there are 2 different aftermaths.
All right.
That are completely opposing ideas. I think I like the series more. So the series takes place 20 years later, 25 years later, because
the HBO series.
Yeah.
34 years.
34 years. Yeah, because it happened in 1985. And the HBO series takes place in 2019, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Oh, so it's past the event.
Yes.
But it's like a reliving of it.
Yeah, well, the series is the aftermath of what happened in Watchmen. So Adrian Veidt summoned this big squid, it united the world, and so Adrian Veidt was successful in his plan. But it didn't bring about the peace that he wanted. He brought the peace. It ended the Cold War. So, hooray. But there's still conflict. There's still violence. There's still... Human beings are still evil beings. So the series takes place in the world that would have progressed in the world where this big giant squid landed and killed millions of people.
And that's what the series...
That's essentially what the series is. We're going to go through the entire series. What's that?
A post-event.
That's right.
To the comics.
That's right.
Where the movie was the comic.
Yeah.
And this is the aftermath.
Yeah. It's cool because every once in a while there's droppings of baby squids landing like random places across the world and whatnot. I thought that was a nice little tidbit at first when I first watched this, but I saw the squids landing and whatnot. And I'm like, that's cool. That's still happening 29 years later.
Yeah, however long later, they're still... Oh, be careful. It might happen again. Yeah. Oh, careful.
But then, spoilers. Once again, I said spoilers at the beginning, but let's reiterate spoilers. You find out afterwards. That's Ozymandias still using the teleporter, dropping baby squids through the portal, landing randomly. And he's even got a randomizer to randomize the timing and the location of where these squids are going to land, so nobody could ever predict it.
It's fucking great.
Yeah.
Just to keep them on their toes. Just to keep the world thinking there's another threat out there. Just keep being friends.
Yeah. And so, in the series, you have different story. You have the story of Adrian Veidt in this palace, and he's got these slaves that are helping him throughout. And I wasn't quite sure where they were going with this But I like Adrian Veidt. He's one of my favorite written characters. I like Ozymandias. He's a really well written character. Just wasn't sure where they were going with this. And like I said earlier, you see that pirate flag once in a while. I thought that pirate flag was going to mean something. Turns out it didn't, but it kind of does at the same time. Not really. So you find out at the end that this palace that you've been seeing Adrian Veidt at was actually a palace that Dr. Manhattan brought to the moon of Mars. And he ended up putting Adrian Veidt on this planet. I forgot why. I think it was his reward.
It was his reward
for saving the world.
And he gave him these slaves.
Yes. So when Dr. Manhattan went on that moon, the moon of Mars, he created his Adam and Eve. He created this pool that generated fetuses, really. So when Adrian Veidt found out about this, he started creating a veritable army of dim-witted Adam and Eves.
They're just followers, just faithful followers. They'll
Yeah.
do whatever the master says.
Yeah. To the point where, like, he is, wow, is he ever a cold character. Like, one of
he recreated Dr. Manhattan's death and transformation by having one of these guys go into the chamber and burn him to death and die.
Yeah, alive. Burn him alive. And throughout the series, you see him using a catapult and launching these Adam and Eves, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? Why is he doing that?
He's just literally throwing them to a different spot on the moon where there's bodies piling up.
Yeah.
Hundreds of bodies.
Yeah, and then you find out afterwards that he actually calculated how many bodies he's going to need for this. He ended up catapulting himself to that location and used all these remains, all these bodies, countless hundreds of bodies, to spell out, "Save me, daughter," so that his daughter, who is this Asian girl, the now smartest woman on Earth,
who he has neglected and rejected and told her she is not his daughter. I don't care. Because an old worker of his, some maid way back in the day, snuck into his secret sperm stash and stole the semen sample.
Yes.
And so now the world's smartest, the offspring daughter of his, he needs to save him.
Yeah.
Who he earlier in episodes told, "Fuck off, you're not my daughter. No, this isn't true."
Yeah. So anyways, she used all these bodies to make this sign so that her satellite could see him say, "Save me," so she could come and save him. It's calculating, like, that's holy shit, how the hell did you do that math? But at the same time, you're a psychopath. Like, you are a sociopathic monster. Like, wow, are you a horrible...
Was there no other way to do that? Like, really?
Well, he just doesn't give a shit. He just doesn't give a shit.
But, like, for him to come to that as his first train of thought, I'm going to pile up hundreds of thousands of bodies to make a sign. Like, there's got to be, like, I could use something else to make a sign.
No, these beings that have consciousness, I'm going to recklessly, without remorse, kill them as I see fit, use them as my playthings. These are not...
He has them kill each other, he has them...
Yeah. He has one pretend to be his arch nemesis.
Yeah, his
caretaker.
Yeah, his Texas Ranger of sorts, basically. Whenever he steps over the line, he comes yelling at him, "Hey, you get back there!"
Yeah. And they introduced another character named Looking Glass, or just Glass. I like his character quite a bit too.
He's pretty good.
And Officer Knight, I like her quite a bit as well. The entire show is very well written. So in the show, you'll see, once in a while, the camera will pan to a newspaper booth. And I thought that was a nice little Easter egg. That's a little homage to the comic series, because the newspaper sense. Booth. And there's different little Easter eggs throughout the entire show that references the original comics. It's very well done.
So what happens at the start of the Watchmen show, though, is basically it kicks back and shows who are they called? The hooded figures.
You have the cavalry.
The cavalry.
You also have the Cyclops.
The Cyclopses. So you get, what is it? The Cyclopses and the cavalry basically try to wipe out the police force, though. And that's how the start of Watchmen.
Sort of, yeah, the police force, but more so. Anybody who hasn't watched the series needs to watch the series, especially with what's going on in the United States right now with the whole entire racist thing. Like, I'm watching this, I'm like, holy fuck, this came out not even a year ago. And what's going on in the States right now is so relevant, it's insane.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched the Watchmen series, watch it. It's very much like, it's all about this character who, I really liked him in this series too. Like, they did his origin in this series. They talk about him, but he wasn't ever a major player, so I was very glad that they put a focus on Hooded Justice in the series.
Oh,
So the Hooded Justice, they did his origin in the actual comic. I already knew
did.
about the burning of his town and whatnot. I knew that he was like a black man, and that's the point of the hood and the noose and whatnot.
Right.
But they made that as a central focus of the series, and it was really, really good.
They fucked up in the movie. I think they made him a white guy.
Did they?
Yeah.
I don't quite remember that.
I think so.
He's the one who
Ruins
found
the
the
whole
comedian.
point.
Yeah, he's the one who found the comedian raping Silk Spectre.
Right.
And beat the shit out of him.
Right.
In his series, man, they made Hooded Justice look like he was a big man.
He's
Holy
badass.
fuck!
He's a badass.
Yeah. Is that from? Oh no, that's from the series. So okay, so
Well, because even in the series, the original Hood Justice gets replaced.
yeah. Now, once again, spoilers. At the end of the series, Dr. Manhattan dies. Now, the reason why I wanted to throw that out there is because let's talk about the other alternate aftermath to Watchmen, and that is Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock is a series that just came out last year in DC. And in DC, the Watchmen have entered the main DC continuity. So what happened was, you know about Flashpoint, right?
Right.
When Flash went back in time and changed reality, he had to go back in time and undo the changes he made to bring back the reality the way it was. But it didn't come back the way it was. The New 52 happened because of Flashpoint.
Right.
So what really happened was, that's the guy who played Hooded Justice in the movie? Oh, yeah, so he was a white guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that must have been, they just fucked that up.
Yeah. What was I going to say now? Oh, yeah, so Doomsday Clock. So what really happened, reason why, when Barry Allen went back in time to undo the changes he did, to undo Flashpoint, and the reason why everything didn't come back the way it was is because Dr. Manhattan intervened. Dr. Manhattan fucked with the timeline, with reality. So New 52 is actually because of Dr. Manhattan.
Really?
Yeah. So that's one big change. So according to the series, Dr. Manhattan dies, but in official comic book lore, he didn't die. He actually went to the DC universe. The series itself, there is no comic. That's all originally. It was all original. Yeah, by I forgot the guy's name, but the same guy who wrote Lost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Lost was great.
Yeah. Kenny will look up his name there, but yeah, same guy who wrote for Lost. He also wrote for Star Trek Into Darkness, so he worked a lot with J.J. Abrams.
I was just saying, I know J.J. was in there for Lost, I thought.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams was a producer, but this guy here...
Damon Lindelof?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Lindelof is good.
Yeah, Lindelof. He's the creator of Lost. He's the writer for Lost, and he's the writer for Watchmen series.
Right.
So this was his creation, his totally original idea.
Okay.
But anyways, in the comic book, Rorschach's journal gets uncovered and gets broadcast throughout the world. Everybody knows what Adrian Veidt did. Everybody knows that he orchestrated the squid. He didn't save the world. He just becomes the world's most wanted man now.
Right.
The Cold War continued, and still no nukes though. But he didn't save anything. It turned out.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
And where does it carry on from that point?
So from that point, you have this new Rorschach. So Rorschach is back, but it's now a different guy. Rorschach is now the psychiatrist. So in the comics, he's being interviewed by this black psychiatrist. And then after the squid landed and Rorschach died and whatnot, that psychic blast happened. That psychiatrist, because of everything he learned from Rorschach and because he knows what's really going on because of Rorschach, because Rorschach knew what was going on. And with the psychic blast, he actually went insane, and then he ended up going to the mental asylum. In the mental asylum, he met Mothman, who was one of the Minutemen who got put into the insane asylum.
Okay.
They ended up meeting, and events happened, and then this psychiatrist ended up becoming the new Rorschach.
Nice.
And then he ends up finding Adrian Veidt, who was actually hiding in Night Owl's old cave. And they end up talking about... He was going there to kill Adrian Veidt, but they end up actually teaming up after Adrian Veidt talked him out of it, because he's like, it turns out, no matter what I do, no matter anybody does, we can't save humanity. Humanity is going to want to fight no matter what. There's nothing I can do to save humanity. Only one person that can save humanity, and that's Dr. Manhattan. So they need to go and find Dr. Manhattan, but you don't know what happened to him. And then they find out that Dr. Manhattan went into an alternate reality, into the DC universe. So they developed some kind. I don't know how they end up doing it, but Veidt ends up building a machine. And
he has an interdimensional teleporter.
Yeah. So he uses that to teleport himself and Rorschach into the DC universe.
Just them?
Yes.
So it's only Manhattan, Rorschach, and Veidt.
So far. So they end up going to the DC universe, and they're not going to find Superman or anything. They need to find the two smartest people on Earth. They're the only people who can understand what it is they're trying to do. Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne. So Adrian Veidt goes and finds Lex Luthor, and Rorschach goes and finds Batman. Or Bruce Wayne, I should say, not Batman. He wasn't going to find Batman. He was going to find Bruce Wayne.
This is dope. This is just world of possibilities waiting to happen, because you get two Lexes basically being like,
yeah. Well, it's funny because
own this place.
Well, it's funny because Ozymandias tells Lex Luthor when they meet. He tells Lex Luthor what he did to try and unite humanity, and Lex Luthor. No, Lex Luthor's like, and you thought that was going to work? You're a fucking fool. It's because Lex Luthor is the smartest man on his Earth. And his perspective, you're the smartest man of your Earth, that means you're just inferior to me. There's no way you're as smart as me.
That means your Earth sucks.
That's right. And he straight up tells him, if you're the smartest man of your Earth, I'd hate to see the dumbest. That's what Lex Luthor tells him.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And in this reality, Lex Luthor is actually not a bad guy. He's still arrogant as fuck, but he's actually a good guy.
Really?
Yes. And something else that's changed in this reality is Superman's parents, his adopted parents, Mom and Pa Kent, died in a car crash.
How'd that change Clark?
I'm not quite sure. I was going through... I haven't read Doomsday. I've just been reading this review on it, and after reading this, once things open up again, I'm going to be looking for trades. I'm going to want to read all of Doomsday.
Yeah, it sounds like I want to read it too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
When Adrian Veidt is talking to Lex Luthor ends up getting shot, but it was the bullet was meant for Adrian, and out from the shadows is the comedian. Yeah, so apparently they don't
followed them through.
Because the comedian is supposed to be dead, right? Because this happens after Watchmen.
Right.
So I don't think they've explained it. Up to the point where I was reading, they hadn't explained why the comedian is still alive. But my theory is that Dr. Manhattan saved him somehow, some way, or brought him back to life from the dead.
Interesting.
But yeah, the comedian is alive. And in the DC universe. What's that?
Does he catch the bullet?
No.
But
he ends up fighting. Comedian and Ozymandias ended up fighting, and this time Comedian ended up knocking Ozymandias out the window. But he survived. He fell through this awning and then landed on a car and ended up surviving.
Nice. Okay.
But so they brought in some other characters from the Watchmen universe that we didn't really get to know very much. Two characters named Marionette and Mime, and they're pretty much they are keeping with the theme of every character from Watchmen is based off of a Charlton character.
Right.
Mime and Marionette are based off of two characters from Charlton Comics, Punch and Julie.
Okay.
Do you remember when we talked about Punch and Julie? They were in the Bane episode when we were talking about Bane. They were part of Batman's team going to save Psycho Pirate kidnap Psycho Pirate from Bane so they could bring Psycho Pirate back to restore sanity of Gotham Girl.
Right.
Punch and Julie were two that Batman brought with him to kidnap Psycho Pirate from Bane.
They don't have powers though.
No, they're not. They just have different skill sets and whatnot that Batman needed, and so Mime and Marionette are based off of Punch and Julie, and so they wind up in the DC universe as well.
Okay.
And Mime and Marionette, they look like a mime, so they have like the white face paint and like the kind of look like Joker almost.
Yeah.
So they're in Gotham and they go into this bar and then it ends up being like a Joker bar and they get told that they shouldn't be wearing makeup like that because the boss isn't gonna like it, and they're like, "Who the fuck's your boss?" And they're like, "Who the fuck is Joker?" And they end up killing everybody in that bar. Mime apparently, like when he mimes a gun, he's not actually miming a gun. He actually is holding an invisible gun, and he ends up like shooting people with it, and they end up killing everybody in that bar. And then where I stopped,
he has an invisible gun.
Yeah, apparently.
That's cool. I'd pull that trick all day.
Yeah. Apparently,
You
also
got
has
nothing.
Yeah.
That's something. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but it's something.
Yeah. So they end up meeting the Joker later on. So they do end up meeting Joker later on, but then the Joker finds out about the comedian, and the Joker is kind of like a soulmate in heaven kind of thing when he meets the Joker meets the comedian, because as much as you would think that Mime and Marionette were like the Joker, they're not. They're insane, but they're not Joker. But the comedian is, because that's the basis on his name, the comedian, because life is a joke. Morality is a joke. That's why he's known as a comedian. He sees no value in human life. That's why he kills indiscriminately, because life is a joke.
He's like, I don't care.
And that's the Joker. So, as much as the comedian was not based off a Joker, their similarities in personality and ideology are very similar.
Absolutely. Now, do you think... So the comedian was never...
He was not a bad guy.
Guy.
No, he's a bad guy. He's a despicable human being.
Right.
But he was
in the name of good.
Yes. Yeah, he was
He's a
employed by the
Punisher.
government. Yeah.
The worse.
Yes. Punisher wouldn't rape a woman.
No.
But yeah. So that's
maybe to death.
Yeah.
Like
I
if
know.
She was bad. Like, but he wouldn't do that.
No. So that's as far as I got. I do want to read Doomsday Clock. But I do know that the end of Doomsday Clock is DC's latest big reboot. This is their final reboot to try and make sense of all their continuity and everything. Bring everything back. They're hoping to this will revitalize their comic sales and to save DC Comics. If this reboot based off of Doomsday Clock doesn't save DC Comics, there's a very good chance Disney is going to buy DC Comics.
Yep. We'll see what happens. Like,
it was after Doomsday Clock. I don't know if you remember me talking about this. I think it was on our... What episode was it that we did this on? I forgot what episode it was, but I mentioned how after Doomsday Clock, they showed a comic where...
the crossover Marvel DC?
Yeah, somebody was making a reference to how a big event is going to happen where the God of Thunder and I forgot what other references they did, but like one of the references was the God of Thunder was Thor, was one of the references, and then in the Thor comic they made references to a god in blue and a red scarlet speedster god and whatnot. So like this Aftermath of Doomsday made reference to Thor, and in Thor they made reference to the Justice League, to Flash, Green Lantern, Superman, Wonder Woman. So
they're laying hints. They're laying like lead-ups.
To a Marvel DC crossover. Not like in the 90s they did Marvel versus DC. Like this seems like it is going to be a legit canon story crossover between Marvel and DC.
Well, I was just say because the now Doomsday Clock, that's canon now.
Yes.
So that's what they want. They want everyone in the same universe.
Yes.
Does that mean V for Vendetta's in there somewhere?
Probably.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Now, yeah, because in the DC universe, you don't need everyone to have heroes or to have powers.
No. No.
Like half the villains don't.
No. No. Some of the best villains don't. Some of the best heroes don't.
Right. So
that wraps up everything I wanted to talk about Watchmen. Primarily wanted to talk about the series, the comic book and the movie, and then talk a little bit about the show and Doomsday Clock, the two different alternative aftermaths to the Watchmen series.
Yeah, because it's funny you say that. Like, I didn't even take it into account. This is all post-event.
Yeah.
When I was watching the show.
Yeah.
Like, now that you say it, now it's obvious.
Yeah.
But definitely good. Watch. What would you advise as a pecking order for those who don't read comics? Obviously, start with the show, then go to the series.
You can. Honestly, you can probably just pick up the series alone. It does help if you watch the movie because that way you have familiarity of these characters.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the movie is for the most part faithful to the comic. You don't really need to read the comic to be caught up on these characters for the series. You can just watch the movie and then watch the series, and you will have a general sense of what's going on. Except you won't know where the squid thing came from because the movie doesn't touch on that at all.
Yeah, that would be the only variant.
With
Really.
the movie, just kind of ignored his Ozymandias' plan.
Yes.
And then substitute in the TV show.
Yes.
Yes. Now, then that's where we get the yellow icon here is the comedian's button.
Yeah, his smiley face button.
Yeah.
With a stain of his blood.
Yes.
So that brings us for everything that we want today, and Watchmen is basically bringing in the new era of DC Universe.
Also, I wanted to bring up, it's funny that we did Watchmen today, because last week we did Cable, and Cable did the exact same thing Ozymandias did. Cable threatened to, remember how I said Cable threatened to take all of the world's missiles and throw them into the sun and become the threat for the world to unify against?
Right.
That Cable tried to be that threat? Well, that's kind of what Ozymandias tried to do.
Tried.
Yeah.
They both failed, I think.
Yep.
Well, valiant effort. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Next week, I believe we are undecided still on who we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. What do we have on our list?
So some options are Thor, Blade, cover the Eternals. We could do Namor if we want to think of cool oceans.
We should probably do the Eternals, considering the movie might be releasing in the next year or two if we ever get back on track.
Well, you sure, but why don't we do Thor or Iron Man or Captain America?
One of the OGs.
Yeah.
Someone who we have plenty of movies to reference and more coming out.
Yeah.
Well, we do, with in terms of Captain America, we do have the new series with Sam and
Bucky.
Bucky.
Yeah.
So we could do either Falcon or Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Or combo them.
Yeah.
But like we
could do Captain America
first,
first.
and then we could.
I thought we'd done Cap.
We haven't done Cap. We haven't done Cap, Thor, or Iron Man.
Yeah.
We're fucking up here, guys. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why are we doing Eternals when we haven't done the big three? Well, the Marvel big three, really.
The Marvel Big Three, because we've done the Batman Trinity.
Yeah.
Speaking of Batman,
sorry, the DC Trinity.
Speaking of Batman, his episode goes live on YouTube tomorrow.
Perfect.
Come check us out.
Captain Marvel goes Wednesday, I believe.
Perfect.
All right, getting there.
So
Trying to get caught back up with all our season 2 episodes. So
randomly, I was on IMDb and I was Googling. I was checking out Christian Bale, and I thought that Christian Bale is going to be in the next Thor movie.
as what?
I don't know, but Christian Bale's going to be in it.
But he's the bad guy.
Probably. Have we ever seen Christian Bale do it? Oh yeah, American Psycho. Duh.
Are you kidding?
Well, even though he was a bad guy, he was still the protagonist. Have we ever seen him play the antagonist? You could argue he was probably the antagonist in The Fighter. No, not really.
Yeah, he needs a starring role, but you can do that with a villain.
Yeah.
You can be the antagonist.
Yeah.
We'll see. Because the next Thor,
It's in 2022.
Jane Fonda's Thor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be female Thor.
The like Gods of Thunder one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Female,
Yeah.
hero, male.
Male love interest.
Considering the last one was Ella.
Right. So I believe they're going to flip the script. We'll see.
We'll see.
That's my prediction. Christian Bale, evil, coming our way. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in for episode 21 of Worlds Collide Season 2. Next week,
Thor.
We got a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
God of Thunder.
Yeah.
So tune in. We'll see you guys 8:05 start time. So we'll get the lobby going for 8. Make sure you're tuned in so you're not missing any of the action. All right.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Justin.
Cheers.
Signing out.